So it's just a different experience. Acceleration's way different. Wow. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the all-new Shelby F-150. Before we get in this video though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Ed Kelly Ford here in Layton, Utah for giving me some time with this truck. If you're interested in this truck or any of their other inventory, just check it out in the description down below. And if you don't know, Ed Kelly Ford does not charge any sort of markups over MSRP whatsoever. So if you want a great deal on a new Ford, just reach out to them. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money, the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. So under the hood, we have a supercharged 5-liter V8 that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are a whopping 775 horsepower and then over 600 pound-feet of torque. You guys can see the supercharger powder-coated blue, and then look at the carbon fiber here. And then they upgrade other stuff like the fuel injectors, air intake, you know, all of that that would make it so you'd be able to put out this much power reliably. Before we go over the front end, I do to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting with the hood, we got this cool supercharged badge, and then you guys can see we've got like all of these heat extractors slash air intakes on the hood, which just looks so cool. Now this is built off of a Lariat F-150, so we've got the upgraded LED lights. You guys can see the daytime running light down below. And then look at Shelby here in the front grille. It looks so aggressive. And then you guys can see we've got the parking sensors down below that. And then of course you got the racing stripes and everything. And look at this bumper for a pickup truck. It's so aggressive. And when you put it all together, I mean, you can tell this truck means business. Look at that. So our tire wheel setup is 35 by 12.5 by 22 in the front and over in the rear as well. And then you guys can see with the design on the wheel, it's all blacked out with the Shelby logo there in the center. And then you guys can see also on the brake caliper that's painted red. Now you can see this has the race series shocks from Fox, which looks so cool, and that's going to help out with damping quite a bit. It has a BDS suspension lift that has been tuned by Shelby, and then you guys can see the iBox springs as well. And so definitely an expensive setup, but also like it's worth it for the ride quality of the truck. We'll talk about that during the driving. So we've got these giant body painted fender flares here, and then you guys can see the Shelby F-150 Off-Road decal, or badge rather, and then you've got the Shelby decal. I guess my mind was going forward there. And then look at the protection here at the bottom, 75 horsepower. And then popping over the rear, you guys can see the race series shocks. Notice they are adjustable. And then when you take a look at the side profile of this truck, I mean, it just looks so good. It's got that crazy, aggressive, lifted off-road truck appearance. Now, being a Lariat F-150, it's got, you know, regular Lariat stuff like your unlock function, your lock function, remote start, and then the drop down for the tailgate, and then the Ford logo there on the back of the key fob. Now we have this bed cap that is going to help out with aerodynamic efficiency with the truck, which is important, but it's as lifted as it is. Still have the racing stripes on it, which is pretty cool. And then I forgot to show you guys the other Shelby logo. And then look at the taillights here. Then you guys can see F-150 Shelby at the bottom there. And then look at the parking sensors at the bottom. And those exhaust tips, those are aggressive. You guys will like the exhaust note in a little bit. And then putting it all together, I definitely think this is just a cool looking pickup truck. But let me know if you guys like the lifted version more or if you like the lowered version more. Now when it comes to the interior, the door panel itself doesn't change as part of this package, but below the door panel, we have power side steps, which is a big change. However, they do change the seats quite substantially. You've got these cool custom Shelby seats. They're more comfortable than the standard Lariat seats in terms of like just how they hold you, if that makes sense. And they also just look really cool. And then all the other features remain the same. You do have carbon fiber there at the top, which is cool. But you got like heated seats here in the back, vents, all that. And this is a Super Crew, so you've got plenty of storage space in the back and also just space for passengers. Now with the front door panel, again, that remains the same. Notice we got blind spot monitoring in the mirror with this particular truck, and then we got the Bang & Olufsen sound system as well. Love the look of the headrest here, and then you guys can see the Shelby logo down below, and look at the rest of the seat. Just such a cool look. We do have our power adjustments here on the side, and fancy looking pedals. Now let's kind of focus on the Shelby upgrades and then some of the stock stuff that remains the same as well that I think is important. But anyways, carbon fiber trim here with the steering wheel, and then you can also see more carbon fiber trim here around with the gauge cluster, which looks really cool. Full digital gauge cluster because this is a Lariat. And notice that we've got all of our normal Lariat drive modes as well, so that is obviously going to remain the same. And then this has a full 360 camera system, which, I mean, is important because it's a big lifted truck, so you're going to want to be able to see out of all of the viewpoints. And then it just has the 12-inch display, so if you guys have seen that in my other reviews, then you know. And then more, well, if the camera will pick it up, more carbon fiber trim all around the dash here, which looks really good. And they've got like dual zone climate controls, heated, cooled seats, you know, all the normal luxury features. Now, being a Lariat, it has the advanced four-wheel drive system, so it's got four-wheel auto as well as four-wheel high. And then you actually have a locker in the rear as well, which kind of adds to the fun. And then you notice here in the center console area, we've got some carbon fiber here. Now, with this lid, it's just the normal lid. So I've noticed that on all these Shelby trucks, they always have the lid closed, and it's because the trim doesn't match. But anyways, center console here, which of course has our plaque. I think that looks so cool. And then look at the nice leather trim on the center console as well. And then we got our cool Shelby American 60 years plaque here on the glove box. And opening up the glove box, tons of storage space with that. And then just the normal Lariat dash trim. And then up top, we got our control here for the power sliding rear window. So it's a nice feature to have. And then also the full panoramic sunroof as well. Controls for that are just right there. So here's a window sticker for this Shelby F-150 Off-Road. Now, the base truck stickered for about $72,000-ish. That was before the Shelby package has been added onto it. But here are all of the standard equipment things, and then you guys can see the performance information as well. So if you want to read through everything, I'll just kind of do this little scan here so you can freeze a frame if you want to nerd out over all of the equipment. Anyways, total MSRP, $132,275, which is very interesting because I just drove the lowered version, the four-door, and so if you get a lifted four-door or a lowered four-door, you're paying the same amount of money. It's a pretty interesting one. Let's see how it drives. Let's talk about visibility before we set off, and I gotta move this down so I can actually see. Anyways, visibility over the hood, both the mirrors do blind spot monitoring throughout the rest of the rear, and we actually got to reverse first because, well, it's a big lifted truck, so it doesn't have the best turning radius on the planet. But I'm driving this back to back with a Super Snake four-door, and so I really want to answer the question, like, which Shelby truck should you go for? Should you go for, again, you know, the lifted version, or should you go for the lowered version? I think that's definitely an interesting question for us to answer. So, officially setting off here in the lifted Shelby truck. First off, ride quality is actually not as different as I'd expect. So this obviously has quite a bit more travel compared to the Super Snake because, well, that's lowered, this is lifted. So when you go over bumps and everything, it doesn't, like, that stays like planted on the ground, so you can kind of feel things more. Whereas this, you know, kind of floats over it a little bit more. So it's just a different experience. Acceleration's way different. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, this feels like slower. Like, you can perceive it. It's not, this is not a slow truck. I want to emphasize that. This is definitely not a slow truck. But like the Super Snake feels like pretty crazy for a pickup truck. This, it feels crazy, but it's not on the same level. Now, at higher speed ride quality with this, it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. Yeah, I'd say this might be a little bit better, and the only reason is because, again, that's lowered, so you just don't have a lot of movement in the suspension. So, you know, it doesn't really do this, but it's gonna do more of that, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is just better when it comes to ride quality. It's louder though, that's for sure. You know, the other one being lower to the ground, you don't get as much wind noise. Don't get as much tire noise either. Man, this is a tough one. I came into this review thinking that I would pick this over the Super Snake, but now I'm kind of leaning towards the Super Snake. That's a weird thing for me. That is a very weird thing for me. Ooh, yeah, braking's not as good either. I looked at the brakes on the Super Snake, and it didn't look like they were upgraded at all. But this still just doesn't feel like it's stopping at the same rate. And I'm guessing, you know, again, having the larger tires, you know, the off-road style tires and being lifted, it's going to play into that, right? Because this, when you brake, you know, you're going to have way more kind of nosedive, if that makes sense. Whereas a Super Snake, its suspension's made for, you know, harder braking and everything, so it's going to stay a little bit more level when you go into a braking situation. Yeah, we got to get up here before we have to deal with that line of cars. Otherwise, we are not moving for the next year. I like the sound of this. It sounds the same. Same powertrain, so you expect it to sound the same. But it definitely does. Way more body roll with this. That's definitely a thing. But, you know, for being a lifted truck, it actually is not too bad from a body roll perspective. Love the sound. Love the sound. Gosh, this is such a fun pickup truck. So setting things up, just like Super Snake, super comfortable seats. Very, very comfortable. Maybe that's what the Super is for. It's for super comfortable. I'm just kidding. But I think this truck looks great. And I love the powertrain in this truck. I like how this drives. But if I were to pick one, man, that's tough. That is really tough. Because, again, like I was leaning more towards this because this definitely has more road presence because of just how massive it is. But at the same time, just hear me out here. You can get a Ford Raptor R now. You can also get a Ram TRX, which are both, you know, off-road style, V8 powered, V8 supercharged powered, like pickup trucks. So this, you know, before both those vehicles existed, oh man, it's so good. Before both those vehicles existed, felt more special because there was like nothing else like it. But now, again, Ram TRX, Ford Raptor R. So the Super Snake feels more special because there's no truck like that from an automaker anymore. Like Dodge doesn't have an SRT 10, you know, Ram 1500 anymore. So I'd have to say, as much as I love the off-road, I think the Super Snake's the route to go. Even though they're the same money, even though the Super Snake is technically less practical because it's a lowered pickup truck, I just think that one feels a little bit more special in today's market because there's nothing else out there that's like it. Let me know which one you guys would choose. That's gonna sum things up with our video on this Shelby F-150. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Ed Kenley Ford here in Layton, Utah for giving me some time with this F-150. Check out the inventory in the description down below. I'll see you.